Hi friends, Shannon here with Cards by Shannon Lee on the Cat Scrappiness channel. Today I'm here to introduce our newest Valentine's release, and I'm going to show you some examples, and we'll put together a card using one of the newest products. Okay, the first product that we have is the Happy Freaking Valentine's die set. Happy Freaking Valentine's Day craft die set. And what it has is the words, the Happy Freaking Valentine's Day, and they're all one piece, with an exception of the exclamation point that cuts separate. And then there's also a shadow so that you can either pop it up on the shadow or just use it by itself. Here is a couple of examples that I used creating with that die. And I popped this one up. It's got lots of dimension. I just did 3 of the shadows stacked up and glued together, and then put our Happy Freaking Valentine's Day on top. I love this snarky sentiment. It's so cute. So another one, very similar to the first one. I popped it up with, let's see if you can see that. It's got a lot of dimension there, and it won't get squished in the mail because I used cardstock and just cut several layers of the shadow. The next one is the Magical Heart Shaker. Now this is super adorable. It has the mouse ears, or the mouse head with the ears, yeah, in the center, and that's stitched in the center of a stitched heart. You also get a plain heart. This is the one that you use to cut your acetate to make your shaker card. If you cut several layers of the stitched heart and then stack those up, you can cut your acetate with the plain heart, and then just insert the acetate one in between the top layer and the second layer if you do it the way I did it, and this is really thick. I've got lots of cardstock behind here, and I cut that plain acetate heart and just put it underneath the red die cut. And then we've got a shaker here. And I wanted to tell you, if you didn't know, Cat Scrappiness has a huge selection of embellishments, shakies, and whatnot. Here I use the Tropical Mouse Ear Sprinkles and the Valentine Mouse Ear Sprinkles. And if you like shaker cards, you have to get the dots. The dots are the ones that make the great shaker noise. So I used the classic red and the yellow sunshine dots. I also threw in some of the Prism Palace embellishment kit for my mouse ear shaker here, and also Quinny the quokka with her mouse ears on and her cute little dress. Isn't she adorable? Okay, the next one. Let's set all this aside. The next one I have is the Possum Heart. Now this heart is so cute for all of you animal lovers with the paw print. I don't know if it's a cat or a dog. I think it's a dog paw print. I think it maybe could be used as a cat paw print. I don't know the difference. I'm not a tracker. What I did with this sample here that I'm going to show you, we're going to turn it into a card, is I just cut 2 pieces, or made 2 die cuts with 2 different browns and offset them just slightly so that there's a little bit of a shadow to give it just a little bit more detail. Let's see if you can see that there. And I'll be right back, and we're going to get to our final product, and I'll show you how we how we use it, and give you lots of tips and tricks. I'll be right back. So I have a piece of smooth white cardstock in 4 inches by 5 1/4, so that I can layer it on top of a matte layer for my card. I made it 1/4 of an inch smaller than an A2 size on each of the sides. So I'm going to use the dog bone stencil, and we are going to stencil some dog bones onto our cardstock. And I am showing you this to introduce Cat Scrappiness' new Crafty dabbers. And I'll show you, they come in a 9-piece pack, and I've got a couple extra here. Let me show you all the colors. There we go. And I have another one on order so that I can use lights and darks. They're very inexpensive. This is a great way to put down a lot of color really fast. Let me show you, and I'll give you, I have few notes here so I can give you some tips and tricks when using these dabbers. Okay, we're going to use the brown. And I'm going to grab my little ink cube here and my brown dabber. Just set that on the side here. Can you stick? There we go. Okay, first, it's very obvious, just dab your dabber onto the ink pad. Now what you're going to do is you're just going to pounce it or bounce it, but you're not going to squish it. You don't want, let me grab a scrap paper. You don't want to do this where you see it squish and the metal pushes into the sponge underneath. You just want to bounce it onto your cardstock and the ink goes seamlessly through your stencil. It gives you a nice crisp detail when you're dabbing it onto your cardstock. And another tip that when you're using the dabbers, as you're dabbing that ink, there's lots of ink on your stencil around the image that it's where it's making contact with your cardstock. You can gently swipe that ink off of your stencil into the openings so not to waste that ink that's already there for you to use. So, and that's another thing to take caution when you're doing it. You just want to gently swipe. You don't want to bend and have the sponge come, you know, like that. You want to just gently swipe, and it moves, because the stencils are made with that, I think it's mylar material, it moves really smooth right across, and it kind of cleans off your stencil a little bit when you're finished with your stenciling project. You can make sure that all that ink goes to good use. Another thing is when you're using the dabbers, it's great for layering stencils or stencils like this. What I'm going to show you is that each time I'm putting down color, I'm not getting into the image that's right next to it. It allows you to not have to mask off those areas that are close to each other if you want to put another color. And I'm going to do that in just a second after I dab a couple more dabs. Another tip when you're using the dabbers is not only using the top of that sponge, or should I say the bottom of that sponge, but also use the sides of the dabber because there's ink on the sides. And I just give it a little twist, get all that ink off the side, because when you push that, when you're bouncing the dabbers onto your cardstock, it's pushing ink into your sponge also. So make sure you use the side and make the most of all the ink that you have on your tool. So just twisting, and then swipe that excess ink into the little bones, and we'll switch colors. And I'll take a look at my notes and see what other tips that I have for you. So now I'm switching colors, and what I'm doing is I'm making a gradient from light to dark. Now I'm going to use that same dabber. I don't need to clean it off now because it only has a lighter colored ink. I'm going to use a slightly darker colored ink, and I'm going to load up my dabber and come here and just bounce that onto my cardstock. And notice how I'm not even taking care to avoid those other bones, but when it's just, as long as you're not smushing that sponge down, you don't have to worry about it spreading out so far that it's going to get into your other image. It's a really neat tool that you can avoid using all the tape and stuff to mask, just to have that different gradient. Another thing you can do is give it a little blend into the lighter color. So I'm just wiping that up into the first color bones, so we have that gradient, and then wipe that excess ink into the openings. Another thing that you need to know when using the dabbers is if you have different types of ink. An example would be distress ink and distress oxides. You don't want to use the same dabber for distress inks and distress oxides. Oxides have a pigment and dye ink combination, and I'm sure there's many other ingredient components that we're not aware of, but what that means is when you use the distress inks, that's a dye ink by itself. You don't want to cross-contaminate your dabbers and put oxide ink into your dye ink, because it will add ink if you use your dabber on different types of inks. I hope I'm making sense there. I'm still having sick brain. I'm just getting over the flu. Okay. What else do we have here? I'm just going to finish this up really quick, and I'll show you one more trick or tip that we can use when using the dabbers. I have here the stamp set called Fluttering By, and the reason I'm showing you this stamp set is that it has this large solid image of a butterfly, and I want to show you how you can use your dabbers to make a gradient like I've done here with these butterflies. There's you know, pink, darker pink to a lighter pink, the coral color to a yellow, darker green to lighter green, and so on and so on. Here I even have really mixed these two, the yellow and the blue, together to make this green in the middle, and I'll show you how I did that. I have my stamp on an acrylic block, and I need some ink. Let's get some, we'll go from light to dark in the pinks. So I'm going to start with my lightest ink, and the reason you want to do that is if you're going to, you don't want to contaminate your dabber with the darker ink before you put your lighter ink down. So if you have multiple dabbers, you can purchase more sets so that you have like a dark, a medium, and a light dabber for each color. Or if you're going to use the same dabber, you can just, actually what we're going to do is we're going to put some ink down with the ink pad, and I'm just going to cover half of this butterfly. And that's with a light pink. And I know it's really hard to see. Let me zoom in just a little bit more. Okay. So that light pink is really hard to see, but we'll be able to see the darker pink, this fuchsia color, and I'll put that just on the bottom half. Really bounce that ink on there so we get some good coverage. Another thing that these dabbers do, in addition to blending it from a dark to a light, is, ooh, I just lost my train of thought. Putting the ink down onto your stamp. If you don't want that real splotchy look that you can get sometimes with the stamps, you can do your dabber to your ink pad and then to your stamp, and you'll get a nice light coverage. So I'm just going to go over this light ink so that I have it on my dabber, and then I'm going to come down to my fuchsia ink, and I'm just going to, and then I'm going to give it a twist and do it the opposite way. So now it just brought that up, that fuchsia ink up farther onto my butterfly. And then I'm going to finish off by dabbing the bottom because it's a little splotchy from that ink, and I want to give it, I want it to have nice coverage when I stamp this. Okay, let me set that down. Bring in my butterfly. Try not to get my head into the screen. There we go. Give it a press. That ink grab hold. And then peel and reveal. And you see how we've got that, it looks a little splotchy now. These inks tend to smooth out as they dry, but you have that gradient where it goes light to a medium and to a darker pink at the bottom. So that's that detail. So I'm going to set aside the butterflies and the pink and show you one more tip for the dabbers. I have a sentiment here, and I have my brown dabber. I'm going to take my dabber and I'm just going to scratch it along the side to give it a little, kind of frame it up, give it a little bit of a distressed look. Just have it so it doesn't look so plain. But it gives it a really nice color You just do that, scratch that along the side all the way around. You don't have to use a lot of pressure. And I'm just using that ink that was on my dabber from doing the stenciling. There we go. And let's scooch this stuff aside. I'm going to bring in my components for my card. And we'll just put this together. The sentiment strips that I have are from the Valentine's, the simple, oh goodness, here I go. Let me grab that. I can't remember what it's called. It's Simple Sentiments Valentine's Edition. And what that does, I got to show you it because it's so cool. Okay, so it's one stamp and it has all of these sentiments on there. And there is one die, the Universal Simple Sentiments die, used to cut out all the sentiments, which you can or don't have to purchase the die to use this stamp. You can also just use your trimmer and cut them out, but I like to use the die so that it gets right up there around the sentiment. It frames it up really nice, and I just stamp it once and then I put a little baggie inside my stamp pocket with all of my sentiments and just grab them as I need them. One more thing I forgot to mention about the dabbers. When you're using the dabbers and you're finished for the day or the session, your crafting session, the way you clean them, you don't clean them with soap and water. What you do is you take a paper towel and you just give it a, you can also use a rag, just give it a pinch. And what I do is I hold it for a second, then I just turn it a half a turn and then give it another pinch in that towel. And I'm just taking the majority of that ink off so that it doesn't get on my other dabbers, because I'm right now I'm just storing them in a cup like this. And yeah, so there we go. I'm going to put this together off camera and I'll show you my finished product. So here are my finished cards for the new Valentine's release. All of the products that I used to create these cards are located in the description box below. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.